ASHE colleagues. This is Linda Sachs from UCLA, coming to you from home and hoping that all of you are staying safe. My topic for the ASHE Full Participation Video Challenge is what higher education can do to advance full participation for women in tech. Despite the fact that women earn nearly 60% of bachelor's degrees across all fields, they earn only 19% of degrees in computer science. So why does this matter? Well, first it matters on an individual level. Computing and tech careers are among the fastest growing and highest paying occupations. Bringing more women into computing enables them to have greater access to jobs that are in demand and pay well. It also matters on a societal level, as computer scientists are needed across all sectors of the economy, from business and manufacturing to medicine, government, and the arts. So what can higher education do to promote the representation of all women in computing and tech? First, dispel pervasive stereotypes about computing careers as lonely and isolating by instead demonstrating the many ways that the field can be engaging and collaborative. But in doing so, remember to teach future computer scientists how to work together. In our research on intro computing classes, we find that courses with more group work and peer instruction actually increase the likelihood of departure from computing majors. Be mindful that for students who are newer to computing or struggling in the course, group projects might exacerbate feelings of inadequacy. The answer, of course, isn't to discourage collaboration in computing classes, but to better understand when and how it is most effective. Second, help students understand that studying computer science can enable them to effect meaningful and positive change in the world. In our research, we've learned that the more that women value helping others and affecting social change, the less likely they are to pursue a degree in computer science. Clearly, efforts to attract more women to computing need to highlight the many ways in which the field positively impacts communities, both locally and globally. Finally, encourage more students to pursue graduate school and faculty careers in computer science. This is critical since we currently have a shortage of faculty available to meet the growing demand for computer science courses. If demand is not met, computing departments may be forced to limit enrollments, giving priority to the students with stronger computing backgrounds. Unfortunately, this strategy has historically disadvantaged women who tend to come to college with less computing experience than men. The bottom line is that recruiting and retaining more women and more diverse women into computing matters because diversity itself matters. In order for technology to best serve a diverse population, the perspectives and voices of women and other underrepresented groups must be reflected in emerging technologies. Thanks, everyone, and please stay safe.
My name is Dawn Culpepper, and I'm a doctoral candidate in higher education at the University of Maryland. My research broadly examines work-life issues for faculty members and graduate students, and in this video, I'm going to share with you some of my thoughts on how higher education institutions can support the full participation of academics and caregiver roles during the COVID-19 pandemic. In the last 20 years, many studies have examined the impact of work-life issues for faculty members and found that the challenges of integrating our work lives and our personal ones can limit full participation for many, but particularly for those who identify as women. The COVID-19 pandemic and its impact across our institutions has made these challenges all the more real. I rarely go a day without seeing an article in places like Inside Higher Ed that mention the substantial burden that many are facing when it comes to providing care while also trying to do our academic work. Our work lives and our personal lives have been upended and are now colliding in ways that we never could have anticipated. My own research has examined work-life issues for numerous groups, including faculty members who are partnered to other faculty, faculty members who do not have partners, and for graduate students in our own field of higher education. And what my work suggests is that there are things that institutions can do to support faculty and graduate students in caregiver roles and facilitate their full participation even during stressful times. First, institutions and departments should be cautious about making assumptions about who is in a caregiver role. Academics with children may have more visible responsibilities right now, but we know that many graduate students and faculty members, and particularly those from communities of color, who have been hardest hit by the pandemic may also be serving as caregivers. For example, my research with my colleague Michael Goodman has examined university messages sent to graduate students during the pandemic and found that institutions have really failed to account for the caregiving roles that graduate students are often in. More attention should be paid to ensure that they too have access to resources. Second, policies and practices should be crafted in ways that are flexibly applied to academics in a variety of caregiving roles. Too often, work-life policies are written or applied in ways that seem like the only people who are eligible are people with children. Institutions must recognize that there are a variety of circumstances in which faculty and graduate students may be or may become caregivers during COVID-19. Third, it's time to get creative and collaborative. Faculty and graduate students, especially those who are caregivers, are stressed, scared, and looking for ways to relieve the burdens on their family systems. I'd like institutions to really think about how they can leverage existing technologies, the expertise of researchers on their own campuses, and creativity and innovation to support faculty and graduate students during this time. The University of Chicago, for instance, has started making weekly online story times available to all university employees. Such low-cost creative practices can help faculty and graduate students navigating our new normal. Overall, there are things that institutions and departments can do to facilitate the full participation of faculty and graduate students in caregiving roles, even during a pandemic. We can't merely acknowledge that these are unprecedented times and ask people to make do. My hope is that given the larger conversation about work and life stress right now, we can set the foundation for a more flexible, empathetic, and creative work-life policy and practice moving forward.
Hi everyone, my name is Leslie Gonzales and I'm an associate professor of higher education at Michigan State University. I'm excited to talk with you all today about how my research can contribute to the full participation of historically minoritized and marginalized communities. And I am specifically going to talk about how my work on faculty careers and faculty evaluation can be helpful in creating space for historically minoritized communities within the academic profession. So I'll tell you a little bit about my research, and then I'll tell you a little bit about how I'm thinking, how it can help us advance full participation. So in my scholarship, I'm often asking questions about how faculty colleagues evaluate one another, find one another to be legitimate and meritorious of being hired, of being tenured, of being promoted, of being recognized in one's professional association. I'm interested in those questions across all the disciplines. One of the things that I've learned from my research and from the research of others is that the evaluation practices and norms that we have in the academy are really based on a very narrow idea of what constitutes knowledge and legitimate knowledge. The basis for that is white Western science. There's a lot of privileging for sort of the white cis male experience and perspective, worldview on things. And that imposes barriers to historically minoritized scholars who often bring to their work sort of a lens or a set of questions that can unsettle or disrupt what is happening in the mainstream of disciplines. So said otherwise, historically marginalized communities, when they come into the academy, they often are doing research that can be sort of disruptive to the discipline and to the departments. Not all the time, but often. And I'm really interested in those tensions. One of the questions that I sort of landed on that I think is really key to advancing full participation is to study the appetite for learning and unlearning amongst faculty who sit in the most powerful of spaces within the academy. In other words, I want my research, and I think my research is headed down the road of trying to help the most powerful faculty who tend to be white men and then white women, trying to help them think about and reflect on how are the evaluative norms and practices that we've been using for a really long time, potentially marginalizing to historically minoritized communities, and thinking about how to unlearn those practices. I think this is where my research is going, and I think that it's key to advancing full participation of academics of color and historically minoritized color within the academy. Thanks for listening.